For decades, horror fans believed the endings they saw were the true final moments, the ultimate expression of a filmmaker's intent. But hidden behind studio walls and locked editing rooms lies a darker history. Some endings were never meant for public eyes. They were shown once briefly before executives panicked, audiences reacted, or someone decided the truth was simply too unsettling to release. What followed was quiet erasure. Film reels were recut, scenes reshaped, and entire finales buried so deeply that only rumors and fading memories remained. A few crew members recall what they witnessed: a more violent twist, a more supernatural revelation, a conclusion that shifted everything. Others claim to have seen early VHS workprints featuring endings that have since vanished without a trace. These lost versions didn't just alter the story, they changed the films themselves. They reframed motives, reshaped characters, and, in some cases, transformed the entire meaning of the narrative. But the public never received those versions. Instead, they were handed something safer, calmer, and far less honest. Tonight, we descend into the shadowed corners of horror cinema to uncover the alternate finales that were hidden after a single screening. These are the endings that flickered briefly across a screen only to be swallowed by silence. Fact 1. Magic 1978. Magic is remembered today for Anthony Hopkins' unnerving performance, but the original ending pushed that unease into a realm so psychologically intense that it was deemed too disturbing for release. Instead of closing Corky's story with tragic finality, the lost finale revealed the full collapse of his identity. In this version, Corky survives the final confrontation but emerges as a hollowed-out fragment of himself. He sits alone in the dim cabin, clutching Fats, the ventriloquist dummy, as though it were a living companion. When Peggy finds him, it isn't Corky who speaks, it's Fats. Corky's lips move mechanically, his voice shifting into the dummy's tone, while his eyes remain unfocused. The implication is devastating. Corky hasn't beaten his inner demon. He has surrendered entirely, allowing Fats to take over. Peggy flees in horror, leaving Corky in the suffocating darkness. The camera reportedly lingered on him, rocking gently with the dummy, whispering soft fragments of dialogue that blurred the line between performer and puppet. Then the screen cut to black, offering no resolution, only the chilling sense that Corky had vanished inside his own fractured mind. Paramount deemed the ending too psychologically extreme, fearing audiences wouldn't accept such a bleak depiction of mental collapse. The footage was replaced with a more definitive, less haunting conclusion. Whether any portion of this lost ending remains is unknown, but its absence has only deepened the eerie legacy of the film. Shall I continue with the Bond? Fact 2. The New Kids, 1985. On the surface, The New Kids appears to be a straightforward revenge thriller, but its original ending carried a weight far heavier than the film's youthful tone suggested. Instead of offering catharsis, the lost finale confronted the audience with the emotional devastation left behind when violence forces innocence to defend itself. In this first version, Eddie survives the amusement park confrontation long enough to launch a final assault at the siblings' home. The fight that followed was brutal and intimate, two teenagers battling for their lives in their own kitchen under flickering police lights. Though they managed to kill Eddie, the victory felt hollow. The final shot reportedly centered on Abby sitting at the kitchen table alone, hands trembling, her dress smeared with blood. Outside, red and blue lights flashed against the windows, but inside, she sat in silence, too shocked to react. Studio executives feared the ending would alienate younger audiences. They believed the image of a traumatized teenage girl, one who had been forced into lethal violence, was too emotionally raw for a film marketed toward teens. A new, cleaner ending was written, one that allowed viewers to leave with a sense of triumph rather than moral ambiguity. The darker, more reflective finale was locked away, and no production images have surfaced to confirm it. Today, it exists only as a whispered reminder of a film that once dared to end with truth instead of comfort. Fact 3. Alone in the Dark, 1982. Before New Line Cinema cemented its place in horror history, it released Alone in the Dark, a vicious thriller anchored by deranged escapees and a town unraveling under their chaos. But the ending that first existed was far more catastrophic than the version audiences ultimately saw. The original finale expanded the riot far beyond the convenience store standoff. Instead of ending with the survivors escaping, the film showed the entire town descending into uncontrolled violence. The killers blended seamlessly into the mob, disappearing among civilians who had succumbed to panic and rage. One of the most striking images reportedly showed Frank Hawks walking down a burning street, illuminated by flames, his expression calm as he watched the city collapse around him. His final line, soft, almost reflective, was said to be, "All it ever takes is one night." Executives rejected the scene as too apocalyptic for the film's scale and budget. They feared it implied a societal collapse that audiences weren't prepared for, and they removed every trace of the extended riot. The ending was reshaped into something smaller, simpler, and safer. Rumors persist of a rough cut containing the footage, but no confirmed evidence has ever surfaced. If it exists, it would offer a radically different and far more terrifying vision of the film's message. Fact 4. The Lift, 1983. The Lift built its tension on technology gone wrong, but the original finale would have shifted the narrative into full-fledged body horror. Rather than exposing a malfunctioning AI system, the lost ending suggested something far more organic and far more unsettling. Crew members who worked on early effects tests described a biomechanical form hidden deep beneath the elevator shaft, a pulsing mass of cables intertwined with living tissue, shaped loosely like a developing human figure. In the original ending, Felix discovered this grotesque embryo, its eyes flickering open as though recognizing him. The shot lingered on the creature's uneven breathing, hinting that the machine was not malfunctioning but evolving. Producers found the concept too abstract and too disturbing. They feared international audiences would reject the biological twist, and they insisted on a more conventional finale that destroyed the elevator system rather than redefining its identity. No known footage of the embryonic creature has surfaced, though fans speculate that some frames may still exist in the archives of Dutch television. Whether true or not, the idea of a growing, living machine remains one of the most haunting interpretations of the story. Fact 5. The Incubus, 1982. The Incubus already carries a bleak, suffocating atmosphere, but the ending originally intended for the film would have plunged it even deeper into psychological horror. Early edits didn't shy away from revealing the true nature of the evil force or its disturbing connection to Sam himself. According to accounts from post-production staff, the first version of the finale portrayed the Incubus not as an external entity, but as something being reborn through Sam. After the final confrontation, he was shown awakening in a hospital room, his face bruised and his breathing uneven. When he glanced into a nearby mirror, his reflection was not his own. Instead, the distorted visage of the Incubus stared back, shifting subtly with each flicker of light. A faint smile appeared, not on Sam's face, but on the reflection. The implication was unmistakable. Sam had become the new vessel, and the cycle of violence would continue under his skin. Test audiences were deeply disturbed, calling the ending too personal, too invasive, and horrifying in a way you can't escape. The studio removed the entire sequence, opting for a safer conclusion that kept the evil at a distance. Rumors persist of creature makeup tests and unused mirror shots, but no verified footage has surfaced. The original ending remains a chilling enigma, one that would have redefined the film's entire mythology. Fact 6. The Funhouse, 1981. Tobe Hooper's The Funhouse radiates dread through its carnival setting and monstrous antagonist, but the ending audiences know is a softened echo of the one originally crafted. The first cut of the film didn't present Amy as a triumphant survivor, only as a broken one. According to a former editor, the lost finale depicted Amy staggering through the carnival grounds at dawn, barely able to process what she had endured. Workers moved past her in slow, disinterested motions, their faces blurred through extreme close-ups designed to mimic the dissociation of trauma. Amy didn't collapse or cry, she simply wandered, empty-eyed, disconnected from the world. The final shot held on her expression vacant, unresponsive, suggesting that the horrors of the night had hollowed her out permanently. Universal executives rejected this version outright. They feared audiences would perceive it as too bleak, too emotionally devastating. A new ending was shot to give Amy some semblance of survival and closure, reducing the psychological impact of the original vision. The darker ending has never appeared on home media, and Hooper rarely discussed it. Whether the footage was discarded or still sits in an archive remains unknown. Fact 7. The Watcher in the Woods, 1980. Disney's The Watcher in the Woods occupies a strange place in cinema history, a horror story wrapped in a family-friendly veneer. But that delicate balance shattered when the original ending made its brief appearance, only to be pulled almost immediately after the film's release. Viewers who saw the earliest theatrical cut encountered a bizarre, otherworldly finale. The Watcher, rather than remaining an unseen presence, manifested as a luminous insectoid being rendered through elaborate practical effects. The sequence depicted a dimensional exchange between Karen and the creature, complete with distorted lighting, pulsing energy, and jarring visual transitions that many found frightening rather than awe-inspiring. Audiences reacted with confusion and discomfort, and early reviews mocked the creature's appearance as grotesque. Disney quickly withdrew the film, re-edited the ending, and re-released it with a more grounded, less alien depiction of the supernatural event. The original finale became an instant rarity, viewed only by those who attended the first showings or acquired bootleg VHS recordings. This makes The Watcher in the Woods one of the only films whose alternate ending was publicly seen before being erased from history, turning it into a legend whispered about by fans. Fact 8. The Unseen, 1980. The Unseen has always carried an odd, almost mournful tension, but its discarded ending would have pushed the film into far darker territory. Instead of closing the story within the confines of the farmhouse, the lost finale extended the narrative into a chilling epilogue that suggested the nightmare was just beginning. In this original version, Junior, rather than dying during the confrontation, managed to escape into the night. The camera reportedly followed him as he wandered through a fog-covered street, confused and childlike, his silhouette barely visible in the shifting mist. He eventually approached a family waiting at a bus stop, quietly observing them from the shadows. The scene faded out before revealing his intent, leaving an unmistakable dread. The violence that devastated Jennifer's life was about to spread beyond the isolated farm. Test viewers found the ending deeply unsettling, not for its brutality, but for its hopelessness. The studio feared audiences would reject a conclusion that offered no resolution and implied further tragedy. They ordered a new ending that contained the threat and allowed the horror to remain isolated. Though some stills hint at night shoots missing from the film, no footage of the alternate epilogue has been uncovered. Its existence lingers like the fog it depicted, thick, mysterious, and impossible to grasp fully. Fact 9. The Sentinel, 1977. The Sentinel was already drenched in religious dread, but the original ending crossed a line the studio refused to endorse. Instead of the quiet resignation seen in the theatrical cut, the first version of the finale delivered an apocalyptic surge of supernatural imagery. In this early conclusion, Allison did not simply assume her role as the new Sentinel, she visibly transformed. Those who claim to have seen the original cut describe her eyes turning pale, her skin shifting with faint, glowing sigils, and spectral figures appearing in the corners of the room, angels and tormented souls overlapping in a blinding convergence. The apartment itself seemed to pulse with celestial energy, as though heaven and hell were colliding through her. Universal executives feared immediate backlash. Religious organizations had already criticized the film's themes, and this heightened, overtly spiritual climax was deemed far too provocative. The entire sequence was removed, replaced with a quieter closing shot that obscured the cosmic weight of Allison's fate. No verified footage has survived, though concept sketches and vague anecdotes persist. If the original ending ever emerges, it would radically reshape the film's interpretation and confirm that the Sentinel once reached for something far more terrifying than what audiences ever saw. Fact 10. The Boogeyman, 1980. Among the era's cult supernatural slashers, The Boogeyman stands out for its eerie use of mirrors and reflected evil. But the film first concluded with a twist that dramatically redefined who or what the true vessel of that evil was. Early reports from those involved in editing claimed the original finale focused entirely on Lacey. Rather than depicting the mirror fragments reforming in a child's bedroom, the lost ending followed Lacey back to the farmhouse where the nightmare originated. There, as she approached the broken mirror pieces, her reflection behaved independently, a soft, unsettling smile appearing on its face, while Lacey's expression remained terrified. The final image showed the reflection reaching toward her, implying she was no longer its victim but its new embodiment. Test audiences reacted poorly. Many found the ending too symbolic, too surreal, preferring the clearer supernatural logic of the mirror itself being the source of evil. Under pressure, director Uli Lommel replaced the sequence with a more direct tease, one designed to better support sequels. The mysterious reflection ending is now a piece of horror lore. Referenced briefly in a German interview and whispered about among collectors, it remains one of the most intriguing missing fragments of the film's history. Fact 11. Eyes of a Stranger, 1981. Eyes of a Stranger is already unsettling, but its original ending pushed that discomfort into territory so bleak that it stunned the few who saw it. The theatrical release offers a clean defeat of the killer and a glimmer of hope for Tracy, the deaf and mute young woman at the heart of the film, but the first ending ever assembled didn't allow her such peace. According to individuals present at an early internal screening, the killer briefly escaped during the apartment confrontation. Tracy was forced into a final struggle inside an elevator shaft, claustrophobic, chaotic, and shot with almost no music. Though the killer ultimately fell to his death, Tracy paid a devastating price. She was left severely injured, visibly traumatized, and unable to regain any sense of emotional stability. The final shot reportedly showed her sitting motionless in a hospital room, bathed in sterile light, as a television newscast recounted the killer's demise. The reaction from viewers was immediate discomfort. Studio executives declared the ending oppressively grim and worried it read as punishment for a victim who had already endured so much. A reshoot was swiftly ordered, reshaping the finale into something more conventionally triumphant. The original scene has not resurfaced since. Though whispers of a VHS workprint persist, no proof has ever been produced, leaving Tracy's darkest fate locked in rumor. Fact 12. The House on Skull Mountain, 1974. The House on Skull Mountain thrives on mystique, spirits, rituals, and ancestral forces woven into a Southern Gothic tale. But the film once pushed those supernatural elements far beyond what the studio felt comfortable releasing. Accounts from early crew members describe a finale saturated with occult power. In this lost version, the ritual that closes the film didn't simply hint at spiritual forces, it unleashed them. Towering apparitions were said to materialize around the mansion, their glowing eyes fixed on the living intruders. Lorena, standing at the center of the ritual circle, was shown undergoing a disturbing transformation. Her voice reportedly echoed with layered tones, as though generations of ancestors were speaking through her at once. The final image lingered on her at the mansion gates at sunrise, her expression unreadable, suggesting she had become something between protector and vessel. Executives deemed the sequence too supernatural, too intense, too provocative, particularly for audiences sensitive to portrayals of mysticism. The entire segment was cut, replaced with a more restrained, more traditional horror ending. Rumors persist that some of the removed footage survived, but no confirmed clips or stills have ever surfaced. For now, the film's most ambitious vision remains buried, a ghostly ending lost to time. Fact 13. Dead of Winter, 1987. Dead of Winter built its tension on isolation, manipulation, and the fragility of survival, but the ending that first appeared in its early cut offered no triumph at all. Instead, it plunged Katie's story into an icy, unforgiving conclusion that left viewers shaken. Rather than escaping the mansion and reclaiming her freedom, the original finale followed a harsher trajectory. After the brutal confrontation with her captors, Katie managed to flee into the snowstorm, but her injuries were too severe. Crew members who worked on the initial edit recalled a long, silent shot of her collapsing in the drifting snow, the house glowing faintly behind her like a dying beacon. The camera pulled back slowly, swallowing her small figure in a vast field of white. No rescue, no survival, only the bitter reality that not every victim finds justice. The scene was screened internally once. The reaction was immediate. The ending was labeled too desolate, too punishing, and emotionally empty. Studio stakeholders worried audiences would reject such a bleak resolution, especially with Mary Steenburgen as the lead. A new ending was commissioned, one that allowed Katie to live and the audience to breathe again. The footage of the original ending has never been rediscovered. Whether it was removed, archived, or simply deemed unusable and discarded, remains a mystery. But many believe this darker conclusion was the film's truest expression of its themes. Fact 14. Curtains, 1983. Few productions were as chaotic as Curtains, a film stitched together from rewrites, reshoots, and clashing creative visions. But nowhere was that turmoil more evident than in its discarded ending and eerie, theatrical finale that was abandoned before most of the cast even knew it existed. This lost version centered not on Patty, but on Samantha, the seasoned actress fighting to reclaim the spotlight. Instead of meeting a tragic fate, she survived only to unravel completely. According to 2 crew members who witnessed the primitive cut, the final scene placed Samantha alone on a dimly lit stage, delivering a haunting monologue to an invisible audience. Around her, the bodies of her rivals were arranged like macabre set pieces, transforming the theater into a shrine to her ambition. The camera slowly pushed in as her smile widened, revealing a woman no longer performing, but consumed by the role she had always feared losing. Executives rejected the sequence almost immediately. They deemed it too bizarre, too unsettling, too theatrical, insisting that audiences needed a clearer hero and a more conventional ending. Reshoots shifted the story's weight to Patty, obscuring Samantha's descent and erasing one of the film's most daring ideas. The original footage has never been publicly shown, and no production stills have surfaced. All that remains is a whispered memory of an ending that blurred art, madness, and murder more boldly than any slasher of its era. Fact 15: The Legacy, 1978. Among the polished corridors and aristocratic secrets of The Legacy, an ending once existed that shifted the film from supernatural thriller to something far more chilling. Early viewers who attended the first private screening recalled a finale that portrayed Margaret not as a reluctant inheritor, but as a woman fully transformed, her humanity slipping away as she embraced a power older than the estate itself. In this original version, Margaret's ascent was unmistakable. She moved through the mansion with an unsettling calm, her presence echoing that of the dark lineage she had joined. One shot reportedly lingered on her eyes, catching a flicker of something inhuman, as though the house itself were breathing through her. Rather than leaving her fate ambiguous, the lost ending made it clear she wasn't surviving the evil, she was becoming it. The reaction was immediate and unfavorable. A number of attendees found the transformation disturbingly final, stripping the story of any sense of conflict or moral tension. Within days, the studio ordered the entire sequence removed. A softer, more open-ended conclusion was stitched together, one that distanced Margaret from the sinister metamorphosis that once defined the film's final moments. No trace of the original ending has resurfaced. Some speculate that a single 35mm print containing the scene was shelved and later destroyed. Others insist a VHS screener briefly circulated before vanishing into private hands. Whatever the truth, the film that audiences know is only half the story. Its real climax remains buried in shadows. Bonus film: Paper House, 1988. Paper House has long been celebrated for its dreamlike melancholy, but beneath its surreal imagery once lay a finale far more emotionally devastating than anything audiences eventually saw. The lost ending didn't soften the film's themes of illness, imagination, and longing. It sharpened them into something unforgettable and unbearably sad. In this original conclusion, Mark's health in the real world deteriorated rapidly, mirrored by his fading presence in Anna's dream landscapes. During her final attempt to save him, Anna raced through a collapsing dream world structure, reaching for Mark as the walls folded in on themselves like torn paper. But in this version, her hand never found his. Mark slipped away into the collapsing light, and the dream disintegrated into white silence. Anna awakened to the news that Mark had died during the night. Instead of the gentle reassurance of the theatrical ending, the original finale followed Anna to the grassy hillside where she first sketched the paper house. She carried her notebook with her, but instead of adding a new drawing, she quietly tore out the page, the house, Mark, all of it, and released it into the wind. The camera reportedly held on the drifting paper as it fluttered away, a fragile symbol of loss the world couldn't mend. Executives feared audiences would leave the theater shattered, calling the ending emotionally unacceptable for a film with young protagonists. The sequence was removed and replaced with something far lighter, leaving the darker version to exist only in rumor. For those who believe the truest stories are the ones that refuse easy comfort, the hidden ending of Paper House remains one of the most haunting, lost finales of its time. These films remind us that the versions we know are not always the versions that were meant to be. Hidden endings, buried edits, and vanished reels still linger in the shadows of cinema, ghosts of stories that flickered briefly before being sealed away. Somewhere, in forgotten archives or private collections, those original finales may still be waiting to be uncovered. If you want us to keep digging into the lost corners of horror history, into the scenes erased, the cuts concealed, and the endings reshaped, tell us in the comments below. Until next time, keep watching, keep questioning, and keep your eyes on the dark.